Well, hello and welcome back to Will Henry's Workshop, where, as you can recall, I promised you wouldn't have to watch that entire chambering operation, and I stuck to that promise. And so we're down to just about the last, well, not just about the last, this should be the last cut. I'll shift you around where you can see a little better, maybe. It's always kind of a balancing act between the viewer getting to see and me having a place to work. A little zoomage here. There we go. So I had established that my headspace measurement would be 0.885 from the barrel shoulder to the face of the bolt. And so that's what we'll be aiming for. Now, right now, we're measuring 0.904. So we have 19 thousandths of an inch to go. And so that's just about perfect for the final cut. Get the headspace gauge out of here. There we go. Now, and as usual, I'll step in front of the camera. So as usual, before the final cut, I take this little triangular stone and make sure the face of each flute in the reamer is clean, so that I don't have to worry about any unwanted marks in the chamber. This reamer has stayed relatively clean all the way through, and consequently have gotten a pretty good finish. So we don't want to mess that up with the last cut. Okay, so I'm going to see, I think, just looking here, I'm going to have to shift some more. There, I think this will work. Of course, I got to walk clear out around here to turn the machine on. There we go. So to make this cut, as usual, I'll set the tailstock quill, set that to 0. And then I just slide in until I make contact here. And then I cut this last cut very slowly, feed it very slowly. And I would normally go to 19, but it cut a little bit when I first pushed in there, so I'm going to stop at 18, let it dwell for a second, and then pull out, and we'll see what we end up with. Now, when I started this, I think I'd commented I wasn't able to blow the barrel out very well because, of course, I couldn't get at it with the air nozzle. So I fashioned a pretty respectable tube from a piece of copper tubing I had. And So at least now I can blow most of the barrel, or most of the oil and stuff out of there. And there we are, right at 885. So Bob's your uncle. So now the next thing in this particular case is that since this is for a Remington 700, and the Remington 700 has plenty of magazine, we can seat the bullet, which in his case is a 180 Accubond. I can seat this out. I can seat this out to where the bullet sits right at the juncture of the neck and shoulder, so that gives us all the grip we need, and that bullet will hang out there. And I think we'll have plenty of magazine space to do that. Let's double check that. Okay, here we are back again. As you can see, I've got the dummy shoved in there, and now we since our headspace measurement was 885, which is 5 thou above the surface here, then this, which measures about 113, so that it's sitting about 98 thousandths above where the gauge sits. And so with when you're throating in a case like this, I want him to be able to seat the bullet out, and he wants to be able to seat the bullet out a little further. So because the 300 Winchester Magnum has a fairly short throat when cut to specs, and the Nosler Accubond bullet actually has quite a long bearing surface, so almost 5/8 of an inch, and so you have to extend the throat a little bit. So in this case, I'm going to run that throat in another 90 thousandths of an inch. Now, when a person's doing this, it's kind of a fine line, because when you throat to accept a particular bullet, and then if the shooter decides he wants to use a bullet with a shorter bearing surface, now the throat's all wrong. So it's kind of like I say, kind of a balancing act sometimes to know exactly what you want to do. But in this case, we're on pretty solid ground, so we're going to go ahead. This will push in to stop well short of contact, and then I just feed in slowly with the hand wheel, and then when it touches, well, look at that, it touched at 0. Then I can go the amount that I want to go. Which in this case is 85 thousandths. And there we have it. So now the chamber is effectively finished. So the next step is to cut the counter bore. Now I'm just measuring this with a caliper because the diameter on this counter bore, especially on a hunting rifle, is not really critical. I like to have between 5 and 10 thousandths clearance. I generally cut them to 705 or thereabouts. And the nose of the bolt's usually around 695. So that gives enough clearance that you're not going to be stymied by a pine needle or something. And so anyway, with the caliper, I can certainly measure to within a couple thousandths. And for this particular operation, that's good enough. So we're at 669. So let's take another 30 thou out of there. And sure enough, we're at 699, so take another 3 thou and we're done. Lube there. There we go. Now, of course, running in the steady, as I'd mentioned, we're cutting everything concentric with the outside of the barrel. And the only reason that's going to work out for us is because we established that the outside of the barrel was absolutely concentric with the bore. So it works out all right. Now, somebody had asked about why I would use the 3-jaw chuck, which normally I would use the 3-jaw chuck. But as you can see, this time I'm using the 4-jaw chuck to drive the barrel. But normally I'd do that with the 3-jaw chuck because my 3-jaw chuck runs very close to true. It's got generally a total indicator run out of about 1.5 thou, so it's not far off. And usually the outside of the barrel is going to be about the same, or in relation to the bore. This barrel, as it turned out, was very straight and quite concentric at the muzzle end. Now, if I had a barrel that was noticeably eccentric at the end, then when I cut it to length, I would have left 1 inch, and I would have flipped it around and run the muzzle end on the tailstock center and cut a 1-inch section that then was concentric to the bore, just to hold in the 3-jaw chuck, and that way you would be much closer. The thing is, if you're eccentric at the muzzle end by even a couple of thousandths, that's not going to make much difference at this end. You'll be down. As always, there are compromises to every setup, and setting up between centers and on the steady, you're compromising to a certain extent, especially at the muzzle end. But on the other hand, you're reasonably sure the barrel's running true. When I turn this barrel on, even feeling it, like it runs true throughout its length. So, like I say, this barrel was made pretty straight, and when they contoured it concentric to the bore. It was a little out at the breech, but and which is why we trued it up, but not bad. So anyway, at this point, the chamber's done. I'll just cut a little bevel going into the counterbore here, and then I'll polish that chamber, and then that'll be done. And for the rest of this barrel, I have to set up and cut the threads for the muzzle brake and turn the muzzle brake, so it matches the barrel. I'm not going to bore you with that whole operation because you've seen it before. One thing I will mention again, if the outside of the barrel is eccentric to the bore and you're fitting a muzzle brake, then when you set up in the 4-jaw chuck, you indicate to the bore in order to fit the brake and bore the brake out to the appropriate caliber. But then you indicate on the outside of the barrel to turn the outside of the brake down so it matches the barrel, so that you end up with a brake that the bore, which is eccentric to the outside, only so it'll match the barrel. And you would do that on a barrel, like on a factory barrel, especially a blued barrel, unless you're going to re-blue the whole thing, because you have to get it to match up. But with a barrel you're putting on, you can make sure that everything's pretty concentric, and when you put a brake on, you don't have to worry about that stuff. So anyway, that's that. I got kind of sidetracked. I was going to say, somebody had asked why use the 3-jaw chuck, and I think what I was aiming for was that sometimes it's not that critical, and at times like that you can use the 3-jaw chuck. Otherwise, use the 4-jaw. I use the 4-jaw an awful lot because it doesn't bother me to set it up, and a lot of times it would be more trouble to switch chucks than it would to just go ahead and align things in the 4-jaw. But anyway, going forward, I'll try and anticipate questions like that and deal with them ahead of time. Whoops, I got to cut that chamfer. Anyway, so for now, on this barrel, this is Will Henry, and I'm out.